They find that the kids that face north or east do about 20% better on the test. They have better focus and concentration.
I'm Heather Grish, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrish.com or on Instagram at heathergrish. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. Today I'm here with Michael Mastro, who is North America's leading expert of Vastu Shastra. For over 40 years, Michael has used Vastu for his clients worldwide to align their homes and workspaces to optimize productivity, success, and well-being. He designed and built the first Microsoft building and many buildings for the Boeing company, employing the principles of Vastu, which he's going to tell us all about today. He's worked with corporate clients such as the World Bank, NASA, Oracle, Microsoft, Nordstrom, Amazon, Boeing, and Intel, probably a whole bunch of organizations that you've been investing in their stocks for. Michael has been a teacher of yoga and meditation techniques since the early 1970s. Along with his wife, Robin, he has co-authored 3 award-winning books on Vastu: Altars of Power and Grace, The Way of Vastu, and Making Room for Mr. Right. And Michael has been on Dr. Oz, and he's a frequent speaker at Chopra.com. And I'm so excited to get to speak with you one-on-one, Michael, because I've been really interested in your work for a long time. And we learned a little tiny bit about Vastu in Ayurveda school. And I am so excited to go deeper into this with you because I am not an expert at all, but I know that this audience is really going to find this cool. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, there's probably a lot of people listening because, you know, being an Ayurvedic practitioner and studying Sanskrit as the language that like comes with that, there's a lot of people who don't understand the lingo that I throw around sometimes. So Vastu Shastra, what is Vastu Shastra to start?
So Vastu means building and Shastra means science. It is the science of building. And just to relate it to common things you're already familiar with is, we could call it Indian Feng Shui. It is the mother of Feng Shui, or yoga for your house. It's all about reducing stress, balancing the 5 elements in the body of your body, which is your residence or your office. In Ayurveda, when the 5 elements are out of balance, it can create some stress that causes some dis-ease in the body. Same thing happens with in Vastu. Your environment plays a big role. And, so we're all born with Prakriti. So we're born with this disposition of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and the environment affects that as we go through our life. And so whatever we can do to reduce the stress in the environment will help keep those 5 elements in balance in the body.
Wow. I feel like in the last maybe 10 or 15 years, people have really started to recognize the power of their environment on their health and also with behavior change. And you have you're behind the design of the buildings for some of the most powerful organizations in the world. And I feel very honored to be speaking with you. Oh, actually, I had heard you speak years ago. I had a yoga client who was a male. He was the design principal at one of the top design firms in the world. And I mentioned your book to him because he had just started getting into yoga with me and stuff. And I thought he really liked it. And I've read your Altars of Power and Grace book, and I'm an aspiring powerful person and an aspiring graceful person, both of them. So from, I guess, the perspective of, you mentioned the 5 elements, how would a person feel that something is out of balance in their space around them? How might they feel that? How might that come into their awareness?
I think your listeners have all had the experience of walking into a house or an office and something just doesn't feel right. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel like they want to stay there very long. And it's one or more of the five elements that are out of balance that's causing that. It could be a very expensive or beautiful home, but there's just something that's off. And each of the five elements in Vastu is related to a specific direction. So the difference between Feng Shui and Vastu is that Vastu is about 7 to 10,000 years old, comes from Atharvaveda, which is where Ayurveda and Jyotish, the science of the stars and how they affect us, come from. And about 2,500 years ago, this science was carried over the mountains from India to China and was adapted to the local cultural and climatic conditions at the time in China and became known as Feng Shui. And some of the basic principles got changed because of those climatic conditions of the time, or, they had some invasions from the north and some sandstorms from the east. So some of the directional things were let go. It was more based on how you entered a building. But in Vastu, it's all about the directions. And each of the directions is related to one of the five elements. So northeast has to do with the water element, and it's all about spiritual and material growth in your life. And in terms of Ayurveda, it's more the Kapha area of the house. And then the southeast area of your home, if you just divide it into four quadrants, has to do with Agni, or the fire element. And so that area has to do with our energy level, whether we're feeling tired a lot, or that fire element may be out of balance because there's a toilet there or some water element reducing that fire, some missing corner or something like that. And so that can directly affect our health. If our energy, our prana is low, our life force energy is low, then it'll directly affect that health. The southwest area of the house has to do with the earth element. Oh, I forgot to mention. So southeast is the pitta area of the house. And then the southwest area, earth element, has to do with how we support ourselves, from our physical structure, our skeletal structure, to how we support ourselves, our career, how we support our family, what we came here to do, our life purpose. And then the northwest area of the house has to do with the air element, which is directly connected to the mind and the emotions. And so that in turn affects our relationships. If that air element is out of balance, then we're not speaking as harmoniously as we could. Our actions are not as harmonious. And so directly creates some stress in relationships. The very center of your residence or your office is the space or ether element. And the other four elements come out of that space element. So any imbalances in the very center, like a toilet or a stove or central heating, that can throw that space element out of balance and affect all those different areas of your life, your relationships, your health, your finances, and your career. But in terms of Ayurveda, each of those areas is related to specific systems in the body. So northeast has to do with your circulatory system and your thyroid and diabetes and different things that affect that part of the body. The southeast has to do with your reproductive, your immune system, and it can affect anxiety and all kinds of stress that affects your sleep as well. Then the southwest, in terms of Ayurveda, has to do with our skeletal system, how we support ourselves. So things like arthritis, RA, and things like that are more associated with the muscular and the skeletal system. And then also the northwest, that's an air element that has to do with your lymphatic system and also your respiratory system. And because it's the mind, a lot of illnesses are related to depression, that imbalance in the mind, emotions, Alzheimer's, all those different things that are related to that. But the big topic these days in Ayurveda is autoimmune issues. And so that's more related to, I mean, it's always a mix, you know, you're not just a pitta, you're pitta vata, or there's usually a mix to it. So I'm just trying to make it fairly simple. But autoimmune issues start usually in that southeast area. If there's some imbalance there, that can affect, it starts that process. Like, for example, breast cancer, it's not just related to the southeast inflammation. It's also about growth of a tumor, which would be related to the northeast. I didn't want to get too technical, but I wanted your listeners to understand that all the parts of the body, all illnesses in the body can be traced to certain imbalances in your residence or your office. Because Ayurveda and Jyotish and Vastu are so interconnected. It's all about the five elements, really. But it's good for an Ayurvedic practitioner to have some knowledge of the sister sciences, really. Because in ancient times, you know, when people would get sick, they would have a Vastu person come. They would have an Ayurvedic person come. They would look at their astrology to see the duration of the illness and what kind of remedies that would work. You know, each science has its own remedies. Some of them are very much interconnected by mantras, and all comes down to the five elements and the planets, what the planets are doing. You can see all in someone's floor plan. You can see their astrology chart and their Ayurvedic disposition. It's wonderful how it's so interconnected, and it's really good to have some knowledge of all three sciences. It's hard to master all three, but just to have some familiarity with that, how our environment affects us, really.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, when we have a health issue, we're lucky if people even start to focus on like the food that they eat, let alone what's going on. And I feel like a lot of people could have a really hard time connecting the dots of that something around them could be affecting them. But in reality, we're all like little puzzle pieces. And so if one little thing in your environment changes, then your puzzle piece changes too somehow, which I'm sure a physicist would have a better way of explaining that than I could.
A lot of people come to me, and if I look at their Vedic astrology chart, I see they've just went into different planetary period. So they're going to be learning different planetary lessons to help them grow and evolve. This is all about, you know, in a negative sense, it's all positive in it, in that we came here. This is a big school for us to grow and evolve and open our hearts and help other people and have compassion for other people. All the experiences that the stars have for us are for a particular purpose, even our illnesses and things like that, so that we can have compassion and help other people as well. But yeah, I think it's so amazing how everything is connected. And if there's something going on for someone, you can relate it to all three sciences and find remedies in all three sciences that could help somebody in a holistic way. So I have people coming to me that have been on doing panchakarma and following and taking specific herbs and a specific diet, but there's some stress that's still there. And then we see something in the environment that could be balanced, that can improve things. And there's something in there, the planets are creating some stress, and there's some remedy there that could be useful.
I mean, already as you went through the 5 directions, which I have a hard time remembering all that technical details of it, but I know how a space makes me feel. And I think everybody gets that on an intuitive level. But I started to think about some of the areas of my house and like some of the things I'm experiencing in my personal life right now, going, oh, I really need to look at that area over there. I really do. So I guess, how did you, as a quote unquote Westerner, and this is a science that comes from India, how did you discover this?
So I was very fortunate. I was a young architect in San Francisco, near you. I was walking down the street and someone said someone is giving a lecture. And I went up some stairs and there was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the Beatles guru. And I was just totally fascinated with what he was saying. This is 1967. So kind of dates me a lot. But anyway, after the lecture, he asked me to design some buildings in Rishikesh. And so I didn't go right away, but I did go. And it was at his feet that I learned about Vastu. I was a typical architect, wanted to design what I thought were beautiful buildings. But once I found out that buildings can affect our happiness, our health, our relationships, our finances, and our career, that's all I wanted to do. I only wanted to do things that would support people being productive. And that's why a lot of these companies are looking at any edge they can have to keep their employees happier, healthier, and more productive as well. So, that's the edge that Vastu gives. But anyway, after I spent some time in India and designing these buildings and learning about the science of Vastu, when I came back, I was very fortunate a few years later to be on the design team for the first Microsoft building and some buildings for Boeing, where I got to utilize that knowledge. These days, for several years, people kept asking me, what can you do for an existing house? I love my house, but, it's not built on according to the laws of nature. So that's what we do in Vastu. We design buildings that are aligned with the laws of nature, so you get that support of nature in all your endeavors. And so I had learned some remedies that, like Feng Shui has remedies. These are more very subtle but more powerful remedies that don't involve any kind of remodeling or anything like that. And there's some tips that we can give your listeners, just some simple things as well today. But yeah, that's primarily what I do for businesses and homeowners. And just somebody sends me a little floor plan or a sketch of their house with their address. And from that, I can figure out where energy is getting stuck and what we can do to get that energy to start moving again. So what you talk about in terms of feeling, something's off. I feel a little stuck. The energy is getting stuck. So that's what we're doing in Vastu. It's just like you're feeling tired or some pain in the body, and you go to someone who understands how energy moves in the body, like a chiropractor, or you get a massage, or you get marma treatment or acupuncture. They know that certain marma points or meridians or energy centers are blocked, and they are skilled at creating some pressure there with acupuncture needle or just acupressure to get that stuck energy to start moving again. And that's what we do in Vastu. We utilize these little tools, these energetic tools, to get that stuck energy to start moving again. So that's the common thread between Feng Shui and Vastu. Keep energy flowing, because when it gets stuck, we feel some stress that affects some aspect of our life, whether it's our relationships, health, finances, or career.
So it's so hard for me not to ask you a million questions about my house right now. I just want to ask you, but I won't because you can't see the floor plan. So just for inspirational, can you give one or two examples of something that one person was experiencing health-wise, some problem, mind, body, spirit, and you were able to see exactly where there was an issue in the home or in the business, and a change was made, and then things changed in the life and the health?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 very quick examples. So common these days, lots of people are having sleep issues. They take drugs or supplements, and there's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, COVID, all these different things, working from home, balancing their family life and their work life. And so one very simple thing. So Vastu is really, for your listeners, just remember one thing. It's about aligning your physical body with 2 forces, and your environment, the body of your body, with 2 forces of nature, the positive solar energy that comes from the east and the magnetic energy that comes from the north. And these set up an electromagnetic grid system that covers the surface of the earth. So if you're aligning your body and you're building to these longitudinal and latitudinal grid system, then you get the support of nature and all 5 elements are in balance. So one of my clients, definitely having sleep issues, and a very, very simple thing that An Ayurvedic person could ask, or anyone can ask, is what direction you sleep. The direction you sleep has a huge effect on the quality of your sleep, whether you wake up feeling refreshed or not. And then there's been a lot of studies where they'll take 50 patients who are recovering from the same surgery in a hospital, and they'll set it up so that half or 25 of the beds will have their headboard to the north and 25 will have their headboard to the south. And they have them all hooked up to EEG machines to measure the REM state. The REM state is an indicator of how deeply you're sleeping, how much rest you're getting. So what they find is that patients with their headboard to the north are having less REM cycles and not as deep of REM cycles. And so the reason is positive magnetic energy comes from the north, and our body is like a magnet. The positive polarity is in our head. So if you're sleeping with your headboard on a north wall, it's like bringing two positive ends of magnets together. They repel. So it disturbs the blood flow, the circulation, and the digestion. So any other direction but north, northeast, or northwest, if you're not aligned to the cardinal directions, will be more beneficial to you. So a lot of times I'll walk into a house or somebody will tell me there's no other wall but the north wall that my bed will fit on. So I asked them to do something very strange. I had to say, when you're ready for bed, just throw the pillow on the other end. Try it for 2 weeks and let me know if you don't feel more refreshed after a few days when you wake up. And 99% people will say that's what they're experiencing. So that has helped several of my clients.
Do they turn their bed around then?
Well, see, a lot of them can't because it's the only wall the bed will fit on. But yes, if it's possible to have your bed on a south wall, if you have a lot of health challenges, or east or west are just fine, it makes a big difference. If you can. If you can't, just try sleeping on the other end of the bed. A lot of clients are having trouble these days focusing, being productive. And that's why, I have a lot of clients at these corporations. And there's some simple things that we can look at there. Again, it's just about aligning your physical body with these forces of nature. So again, many studies have shown, I've been involved in a couple where they'll take 100 kids, similar IQ, study the same materials, take the same tests, and all hooked up to EEG machines, and divide them into 4 groups. 25 will face north, 25 south, 25 east, 25 face west, while they study and take the tests. They find that the kids that face north or east do about 20% better on the test. They have better focus and concentration. They are producing an alpha rhythm, which is a harmonic brainwave, and the kids that face south or west are producing a beta wave, which is more chaotic. And part of that study also shows that if you face north, that supports more the left brain, analytical, the math part of the test. And if you're facing east, it's more the right brain, creative part of the test. So those things make a huge difference for people being more productive and doing better in their jobs and earning more, etc. The other thing that's fairly simple that anyone can do is whatever kind of issue you're facing, according to what I talked about earlier, let's say you're having some health issues. Then try to get more organized in the southeast part of your house. Common to Feng Shui and Vastu is clutter, things that aren't organized, things that you haven't used in years, things that you can't find if you ever need them. So even just look at a closet or a drawer in the southeast, take everything out, make 3 piles, one to give away, one to save, and one to keep, and put it back in an organized way. This makes a big, big difference. It's reducing the stress in that part of the house that's affecting whether you're feeling tired or sluggish or some health issue. Same thing in the Northeast. If you're having financial issues, look to see whatever can be more organized. In the Northwest, if there's relationship stress or lack of relationship, see what you can do to be more organized there. And same thing with your career in the Southwest. Those are very simple things. But yeah, I have thousands of clients with all kinds of issues related to their environment that we can energetically correct anything without any remodeling. that make a huge difference in their health, their finances, their career, and relationship.
The thing I love about this is that it's really inspirational. And I feel like when you're trying to focus on a health problem, sometimes it's like it feels like a chore to have to quote unquote do things with your body to change it.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes if you just change something in the environment, it's like it somehow inspires it
Yes.
out of you
Yes.
rather than, oh, I got to go do this thing and create it from the inside out.
Yes.
Like, I don't know, consciously create it from the inside out. It feels harder somehow.
Sometimes a very simple shift can make a huge difference. But a lot of clients come to me when they move to a different apartment or a different house, and everything was going just fine, and all of a sudden they're experiencing more stress in their marriage, or they're having some health issue that cropped up out of nowhere, or got fired from their job, or lost a bunch of money in the stock market, whatever it happens to be. And they notice that when there's a change in the environment, whereas things were going well, and then all of a sudden it's changed for them.
How does this play out differently in our homes versus in business or other spaces that we go to other than our home?
Well, wherever we spend the most amount of time has the biggest effect. And these days, so many people are working from home that it behooves us to really focus on the home and where you're working in the home and all those things that go along with it. But yeah, we're spending less time at the office, but it does have an effect if for the office environment on our health, etc. It's all about reducing stress. Whatever we can do to reduce the stress in the mind and body through meditation, yoga, Ayurveda. We have so many wonderful tools, all coming from the Vedas, and then the simple stuff like having a good diet, getting good exercise, drinking lots of fresh water, being in nature, connecting with nature. All of those things make a big difference too. And then that's about 30%. 30% affects our success and our good health, etc. The other 30% is our environment. Huge effect. There's so much stress. And, Vastu talks about 7 different ways that energy can get stuck and create stress. When you're not aligned to the cardinal directions, attitudinal lines, that's one thing that can distort the energy field in your house and create some stress. The placement of items within your home, that's one other thing. Say, like I said, you had a toilet in the southeast, that's water reducing fire, affecting pitta, more inflammation in the body, etc. Then the shape of your house has a huge effect. In a rectangular shape, all energy is flowing uniformly, but architects love to create missing corners and extensions so the garage sticks out, and etc. So that some energy gets stuck that way. And then north and east are the solar and the magnetic energy. A lot of us live in apartments where those areas are blocked. We have no windows or doors. So something's missing there. And then a lot of us have south doors or west doors. So some of that healing or financial energy leaks out. So that's another thing to consider. Slope of the land is something else to consider. And these days in the Vedas, they talked about earth energies, underground streams, fault lines, things like that are totally out of our control. But these days, it's all about electromagnetic frequencies. Many of my clients, I don't know about yours, are very sensitive to these EMFs, and it affects their immune system, their sleep, and productivity. And so and my wife's particularly sensitive. So we've been working on different solutions for that for the last 10 years, and watching, Elon Musk has, put up all these satellites. Pretty soon you won't need a router in your house. We think that going to having your remote reader for your electric, your gas, your water, that puts out a lot of EMFs, but it's not going to matter anymore. We are electromagnetic beings living in a sea of electromagnetic frequencies that are increasing by the day. The body is trying to adapt, but whatever we can do to protect ourselves. So we've developed a pendant that you wear and something you plug into your house to change those incoherent frequencies into coherent frequencies that the body can actually handle. So yeah, those are just some of the things that the environment has. The last 30% is, you could say, karma, or the planetary stress that is there for us to learn certain lessons in life. And again, everyone should ideally know their chart and what's happening and how the planets are affecting them and what they can do to remedy, these certain planetary phases that we all go through, to help us, move more gracefully through life and not be suffering is optional, we like to say.
The thing that I really like about this is that, you talked about sensitivity. I tend to get a mix, but I tend to get a lot of clients who are not sensitive.
Okay.
And I find that really fascinating because I've had a body for nearly 45 years now. I've seen how my sensitivity levels have changed in response to my body composition at the time, or also, after having a kid and things like that, what that did to my body and the spaces inside my body and how those changed. And so the sensitivity thing is tricky to explain to someone who can't feel something, but other people can. And then they can't imagine that somebody else could feel something because they've never felt it, but because their instrument is a different kind of instrument right now, it's not actually like able to pick up that thing in the environment. So I would say the noise thing really gets me, that I have very like superhuman hearing. I've always had this where I'll hear a noise in my house and I'll ask my partner if he hears it, and he doesn't hear it. And I'll be like, I can't go to sleep until I unplug that thing, and he can't even hear it. So I just think that that's a really good example. It's tangible for people to understand that people really do have different levels of sensitivity. And it's so beautiful. I think it must be really hard the higher your level of sensitivity as the world gets more, like you said, there's more stuff going on in the field that you're going to pick up. And it's important to, you said, people know how they feel when they walk into a room. And a lot of times we have these things going on in our lives that we don't exactly know why they're happening to us or why we feel a certain way. And we're looking everywhere we can for the cause of this thing. And anyway, I love this. I've spent a lot of years trying to control myself and control my body and, like eat the right things and, and Ayurveda and yoga. And I think especially because I work with women who are trying to start a family and they want to get their bodies, their minds, their spirits ready for that. This is a huge thing that happens in that process of when you're developing your family or you move in with somebody. What are some of the ways that you would recommend people use Vastu in these moments of their lives when they're visioning starting a family?
Yeah, so I don't know about you, but I have hundreds of clients that are having trouble conceiving. This seems to be an issue that is becoming more and more. I can just remember, there was a few 10 years ago, but now there's hundreds.
Yeah.
And there are some simple things that how Vastu or your environment affects it, and, the doshas affect it. And, we look at particularly the southeast area because it's the reproductive system, and then the northeast area because the part of the house that has to do with growth of, you conceive and then the baby starts to grow, etc. And then once you have the baby, then where's the place for the baby to sleep and how to arrange the baby, how the baby's sleeping, even though the baby will move around a lot. What can we do in the environment to support, the best possible outcomes for that baby? So yeah, there's a lot to look at. I've written some articles, probably my wife and I together. I can't really do anything without her. She's beautiful and brilliant, and she puts to words the things that I understand that I can't. So we're a good team that way, and she's highly sensitive. And it's a gift, you talked about your sensitivity and how it's evolving, and, sensitive people are highly intuitive, and that's a gift. That's a wonderful thing to have. And it can be overwhelming, and it It's something that you have to learn to balance in your life, for sure. It's all about finding balance of the five elements, and balancing the things in the body with the yoga and meditation and Vastu and the planetary balance as well.
Yeah, because some of the fertility issues are happening because of issues with human health. Some of them are mysterious, like the male sperm counts have declined, 59%, 50 to 59% between 1973 and 2011. There was a huge drop. So there's some things that I don't think people quite understand about what's changing with humanity, but there are, and then there's also obviously the plastics in the environment, which I'd love to hear your take on from a Vastu perspective.
Yeah, so good questions there. Like in Vastu, when we design a house, we only use natural materials. They raise our vibration. And the synthetic materials, the toxins, all those things lower our vibration. So this is definitely something that's going to affect your reproductive system. The other really big thing that people, are just coming to realize is about these electromagnetic frequencies. Primarily, the people that are having trouble conceiving that come to me are sitting in front of a computer 8-10 hours a day or more. And then other people are looking at their phone. so many hours a day as well, without any kind of protection or anything like that. So that's what's really changed in the last few years. I mean, and you even look at, I'm going to get into some areas that are highly conspiracy type, but you can actually track all these major viruses by the shift from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G. Look at the coronavirus. It started in where the 5G actually started. So it's very related.
It's almost like an amplification of everything.
Yes. So yeah, whatever we can do to protect ourselves can make a huge difference.
And the shape of that coronavirus too, when you look at it, it's that dispersion. It's just insane. Wow. It's so important for us to think about how we're connected to the environment. And when we look at medicine, even, and how we practice medicine today and how we all experience healing and getting support for our health when we go into a hospital. I remember talking about Vastu and what your experience would be like in a space. I remember I didn't want to go into the hospital, but I ended up having to because I had to get induced when my son was born. And, they immediately want to put the hep lock in you and you're in this thing and there's wires everywhere. And I doubt anybody's ever thinking in these hospitals of they'll do little touches, right? Like some piece of art on the wall or the color of the wood paneling that they put on something, right? But the things that you're talking about are going a lot deeper than just these like surface, putting lipstick on a pig kind of things that really do change our experience. And I'd love to see in medicine, in the hospital settings and in healthcare settings, these principles. Do you know of any examples of healthcare organizations or hospitals that have used Vastu?
I've been approached by hospitals, and I've done in Los Angeles, I did Veterans Hospital, Vastu for that. They were having a lot of issues. And in the mental ward there was a lot of stress. And that definitely improved. I've done tons and tons of dental offices and doctors' offices, etc. And those things really took a shift in terms of the success of their business, but also the healing of their patients and things. So it does make a difference. I just hope more and more people get educated by these type of podcasts, that your environment affects you, and whatever you can do to balance the five elements in your environment to make it more supportive for your healing process can make a huge difference.
I love that, because you're saying how the environment affects you, and you're also saying, well, and guess what? You could tinker with your environment. You could tinker with it, and then you can have that reflect back and affect you.
I mean, a lot of people say, are you saying there's something wrong with my house or whatever? I'm just saying, okay, you have a sports car and it runs wonderful, but if you fine tune it, it can run even better. So that's exactly what we're doing in Vastu. We're not trying to say, your environment is causing all your stress, but it makes a difference when, like you say, you tinker with it and fine tune it.
Yeah, I totally believe it and have felt it. And I think with all of these Vedic sciences, it's like our lives these days have gotten so complicated, and our knowledge and our thoughts and everything have gotten so complicated that we've lost touch with this sort of deeper intuitive connection to the space around us. I always use this example of when I see deer, in my neighborhood and a car comes by, the deer kind of like move in unison. They have a feel for the environment. And that's sensory, and that more in our minds we get, the less sensory beings we become. And, Ayurveda and yoga and Vastu and Jyotish and, the study of the stars, these are ways that we can start to get more into our sensory bodies, more of a feel for where we are in space and time. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here. How would you recommend somebody kind of get started with this? I know you have some books. What would be like the beginner book?
Yeah, so The Way of Vastu, it's out of print, but it's on Amazon. Again, my wife and I wrote that book, and The Ultras of Power and Grace, which you interview my wife Robin, are good ways to get familiar. And we try to make it very simple, not too complicated, because it is. It's just about aligning your physical body with nature, with the environment. And so those would be two good ways to get familiar.
Wow. Well, I'm excited. You've motivated me to really look at my space where I live more. And I did that at the beginning of the pandemic, but then I kind of haven't made any big changes, after the pandemic lockdowns all ended. A lot of people did that. Everybody was reorganizing their house. You couldn't get furniture from places. There were big, huge backlogs on everything. So thank you so much. I'm motivated. I'm excited. I would guess that our guests are also excited to dive into this. And how can they connect with you, Michael?
Well, I think Robin is sending you a link that where also, without even buying the book, we have a little PDF called Success Through Vastu. So you can connect there. My email is michaelmastrovastu@gmail.com, and I'm happy to have them connect with me on any questions you might have. And for you and your listeners, just send me a little sketch. It doesn't have to be like architectural in any way, with your address, and we can tell where that energy is getting stuck and how to get moving again to support success in all areas of your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm so grateful to speak with you today and grateful you came on the show and for your time. And I'm also looking forward to interviewing Robin soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I want to thank you for listening to this show. It brings me great pleasure to provide this content to you. I also want to let you know that I'll be making some very amazing announcements soon. And if you're not already on my email list, then I encourage you to go over to my website and subscribe to my email list so that I can keep you informed about these announcements that are going to be coming up very soon. So my website is heathergrish.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. And I look forward to getting these important announcements to you very soon and connecting. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrish.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.